We are live on YouTube. Wednesday, August 5th, 2020, 19 miscellaneous 516, the Bevilacqua Company, Inc. versus the Gloucester City Council.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Council.
Morning.
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 Ms. Basu, Mr. Mullen, you may proceed with your next and I understand final witness.
Yes, Your Honor. I call Dr. Richard Sapphire.
Good morning, Dr. Sapphire. You'll be sworn in by the court reporter.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Sapphire, we have a couple of admonitions for you this morning. First of all, as we even advise witnesses in a live bench trial, keep your voice up, speak into the microphone, and importantly, wait for the end of the question before you start answering. And if there's an objection, please do not answer until I've ruled on the objection. Furthermore, special rules for this video conference trial. Let me read you our rules that are part of a procedural order for this case. Witnesses are prohibited from privately communicating with anyone by text, private chat, or in any other manner while they are testifying. Witnesses are further prohibited from holding, having, referring to, or using any notes, paperwork, or other aids while they are testifying unless such notes, paperwork, or other aids have been made available to counsel for all parties prior to trial. Witnesses are further prohibited from having anyone in the same room with them while they are testifying unless that person is another trial participant who is also on screen. Are you in compliance with all those rules and expect to be during your testimony?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, Mr. Mullen, you may proceed with your examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state your full name?
Yes, it's Richard N. Sapphire.
Where do you live?
In 3 Mount Ann Road in Gloucester, Mass.
How are you employed?
I am recently retired from the Gloucester Public Schools as their superintendent. In the fall, I will be an adjunct professor at Salem State University.
For how long did you serve as superintendent in Gloucester?
I was superintendent for 9 years, from May of 2011 until this past June 30th.
Can you briefly summarize your education?
Yes, I got my bachelor's degree from University of Massachusetts in 1981. My teacher certification from Salem State in 1987. My master's in education administration in 1995, and my doctorate in educational leadership in 2004.
Can you briefly summarize your employment between college and becoming superintendent?
Yes, I also actually have another degree from the New England Conservatory. I taught music at North Shore Community College. I taught with Harvard the New England Conservatory Extension Division. And after a summer teaching summer school in Linfield, I was employed by Malden Catholic High School as a science teacher. After that, I became the assistant between college and, do you want me to go further?
Yes, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. After teaching at Malden Catholic, I became an assistant principal in the town of Bevilacqua. I was there for 16 years as assistant principal from 95 to 2000. And then I was the high school principal from 2000 to 2007. And then became the assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction and assessment there as well up until 2011, at which time I came to Gloucester.
Do you hold any licenses or certificates relating to school administration?
Yes, I'm certified as a superintendent. I had participated in the Merrimack Leadership Academy and had received my certification through them.
And what were your responsibilities as superintendent of schools in Gloucester?
Well, obviously, maintenance and development of the budget on an annual basis. I supervise all of our administrators, and collectively working with them, oversee all aspects of providing a public education for all of our children in the Gloucester Public School District.
What is the size of the Gloucester Public Schools in terms of the number of students and employees?
Right. The number of students fluctuates between 2,900 and 3,000, and in terms of employees, we have about 500.
And what schools are comprised within the Gloucester Public School System?
Hey, there are 8 altogether. There is the preschool, which is housed at 2 Blackburn, which is where central offices are located. We have 5 elementary schools, Beeman, East Gloucester, Plum Cove, Veterans, and West Parish. The middle school is the O'Malley Innovation Middle School, and then Gloucester High School.
What is the approximate budget of the school department?
In and around $44 million.
What is the average cost of educating a student in the Gloucester Public Schools?
Objection.
Right.
Hold on, there's an
sorry.
objection. Hold on, there's an objection.
Yeah, my objection is that the cost of educating students in the Gloucester Public Schools, it wasn't part of the decision made by the City Council, so it's not relevant. Doesn't seem to be any provisions in the zoning ordinance that make that a factor. So on that basis, I object.
Mr. Mullen?
Your Honor, the zoning ordinance requires us to look to the issue of fiscal impact. In its application, Bevilacqua boasts that the project will result in a higher valuation of the property, which in turn will result in more property taxes for the city. What I intend to demonstrate through Dr. Sapphire's testimony is that the costs that are very likely to be imposed on the city as a result of the number of school-age children who can be safely predicted to live there exceeds considerably any advantage in terms of new tax revenue.
Well, nobody's presented any admissible evidence of so far as to what this project is expected to reasonably generate in terms of tax revenue. So you're presenting, you know, a portion of the picture here, but it's relevant to the issue of fiscal impact. I recognize, Mr. Cohen, that the council did not specifically address this as a reason for their decision in their decision or even in the minutes. But I'm going to allow it for now, and we'll see where it goes. All right, you may proceed.
Dr. Sapphire, my question was, what is the average cost of educating a student in the Gloucester Public Schools?
It's just a shade above $17,000.
And what is the, I'm sorry.
Sorry, per pupil.
What is the basis for that number?
The Department of Education publishes the average per pupil costs on an annual basis. Recently, they have given us the 2019 cost per pupil, and that figure is a reflection of that.
Oh.
It's based upon all the resources, staffing, and administrative costs that all go into providing an education for a certain number of students within a district.
I'll represent to you, Doctor, that in its supplemental answers to interrogatories, the city reported a slightly lower number, $16,836 per pupil, as the 2018 average. Can you explain why the number you cite is higher?
That represents the recent publishing of the 2019 figures from the Department of Education.
Can I ask a question? Because I just did some quick math, and I believe, Doctor, you said that the budget for the school system is $44 million.
Yes.
And there are
around,
roughly
yes.
And there are roughly 5,000 students,
Uh,
3,000
close
students.
to 3.
That doesn't come out to $17,000 a student, does it?
Well, you really have to look at the financial way in which the department that puts this together. There are certain percentages that go into low-income students, special education students, English language learner students. There are certain percentage variables that go into their overall equation, and that spreadsheet can be found on the Department of Education. But that is the price. I'm sorry, that is the cost that the Department of Ed has published. It also includes not only administrative costs on the school side, but on the city side as well.
So you're including non-budget costs that are not part of the school budget?
They, I believe they also include grants and revolving account funding as well. In other words, you have the operating budget, which is, I think, the basis for your question, and there also are grants, Title I grants, special education grants, and revolving accounts all contribute towards the overall per pupil cost.
Well, Your Honor, I would object. I don't see how you can connect those kind of numbers to our project.
Well, you're gonna have an opportunity to explore this in cross-examination, Mr. Cohen. All right, Mr.
Okay,
Mullen.
all right.
In the course of your duties as superintendent, were you called upon to estimate future school enrollments?
The answer is yes.
And what is the reason for estimating future school enrollments?
I think I alluded to this before, that as you are preparing a budget and you're looking to allocate resources across the district and to identify not only the numbers, but the nature of the staffing, it all goes into that.
How did you go about estimating future school enrollments?
Well, just a couple of fine points. You can begin with looking at the graduating class and how many students are leaving. Then you can look at your incoming kindergartners. The way we look at that is by asking the city for the birth rate 5 years prior. So if 200 kids are graduating and 230 preschool age are coming into kindergarten, that's an indicator that it could conceivably go up. You look at the patterns over the last 4 or 5 years to see where the overall enrollment seems to be going. We know in this particular district that between the 5th grade and the 6th grade, between the 8th grade and 9th grade, there are some families that there's school choice where they choose to go to different districts. So there's a whole set of dynamics that we take a look at in order to do the best projection that we can, again, in order to work on the budget and allocate the resources accordingly.
If you were asked to estimate the number of school-age children who would likely be added to the Gloucester school system as a result of a residential project consisting of 8 units, 4 of which would have 2 bedrooms and 4 of which would have 3 bedrooms, how would you proceed?
Yes, if you there are 20 bedrooms altogether, if I'm not mistaken. Take away the 8 for the owners / occupants. That leaves 12 potential Helmstead classrooms, bedrooms for children. To take a conservative estimate, I would cut that in half and say that we could anticipate, for budgeting purposes, the possibility of around, out of those 12 bedrooms, 6 students possibly coming from those units. The next step then would be to try to compare it with something that already exists.
So I'm going to try to share the screen with you, Doctor, to bring your attention to Exhibit 8. Did I succeed?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Can you identify Exhibit 8, please?
Yes, this is part of our information about enrollment, and it shows students who reside at a particular location in the city of Gloucester and attend the public school.
Okay. Let's go through the exhibit. On the left, I see a column of numbers labeled student. What do those numbers reflect?
That it's to state the obvious that each represents a particular student that attends the Gloucester Public Schools and who resides at 75 LePage Lane.
And I'm sorry, what is 75 LePage Lane?
That is that's the location where they live. That is their residential address.
And do you know whether that's a multifamily housing project of some sort?
Yes, it is. I believe that there are 34 units.
Okay. And just
And did I get where this building is?
It's located in West Gloucester.
In West Gloucester, okay.
Yeah.
just to the right, I see that numbers 18 and 19 have what look like initials next to them. What do those letters mean?
Yes, the PK, and just to the right, you can see that that is a child that attends the preschool I had mentioned before. And number 19 is a student at Gloucester High School. The SP suggests that there's a special placement. That could be an out-of-district placement. I'm not entirely sure.
And can you explain the remaining columns labeled grade, school, and address line?
Yes, the grades, of course, indicate that a child is in grade 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, and 12. And school, of course, refers to one of the 8 schools that I had mentioned at the beginning of my testimony.
And how would this information help you estimate the number of school-age children likely to be contributed by the project proposed here?
Yes. Well, my understanding, again, that there are 34 units and 68 bedrooms. So we use a ratio and proportion. If there are 19 students in occupying 68 bedrooms, so you divide that, you get a 0.279. And if we then multiply the 0.279 times the 20 bedrooms in the project under consideration, that would then give us about 5 to 6 anticipated students. So the earlier thinking and estimating seems to dovetail with the ratio and proportion comparative to the information here in Exhibit 8.
Does the fact that half of the units in the plaintiff's proposed project would contain 3 bedrooms affect your estimate?
I would say that it gives me a little bit more confidence. If somebody is buying a 3-bedroom unit, I think there's a greater likelihood that there could be at least one child living in that particular unit. And again, if there are 12 available units for potentially for children, and we cut that in half, and it correlates, if you will, to the figures we have from LePage, then I consider it to be a reasonable estimate.
Based on your education and experience and the analysis you've discussed today, do you have an opinion as to the number of school-age children who are likely to be contributed to the Gloucester Public Schools by the plaintiff's proposed project?
Yes, once again, I would estimate conservatively about 6 children.
You mentioned that the cost of special education out of district placements is not reflected in the average cost per pupil?
Not in the figure that I quoted you from the Department of Education, correct.
Is it possible to estimate the number of special needs students who would likely be contributed to the school system by the addition of at least 6 children?
Yes, well, we have a special education population. 26% of our students in the city, in the Gloucester Public Schools, are special education students. So that's 1/4. If there are estimated 6 students coming from the new project, then I think we would anticipate 1 to possibly 2 students. Given that figure, that would be the estimate for around 26% special education.
And what is the duty of the Gloucester Public Schools with respect to students with special needs?
Our responsibility is to provide a free and appropriate public education, and also in the least restrictive environments. Our goal is always to be as inclusive as possible for our children based upon their individualized education plan. But based upon their nature and severity of the disability, it could call for supplemental services in speech and language, occupational therapy, physical therapy. In some instances, we might require a one-to-one paraprofessional. We do have some substantially separate classrooms for students with moderate to severe disabilities. And when the district itself cannot provide for the needs of a particular child, that's when we do look for a placement that would be in his or her best interest.
Is there a standard cost for out-of-district placements?
Again, depending upon the nature.
I'm going to object, Your Honor. There's no.
Hold on, there's an objection.
Yeah. Your Honor, there's no evidence that there's going to be any children in this in our project who are going to need out-of-district placements. It's just speculation.
The objection is sustained.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Cohen, you may inquire. And
Maybe you could keep
done
that.
if you're done with that exhibit, please take it off the screen.
Yeah, I'm going to, Your Honor, I'm going to ask questions about the exhibit. So, oops, it's gone.
Well, then when you're ready for it, then Ms. St. Amand can put it back up for you.
Okay, thank you. Would you mind putting that exhibit back, Ms. St. Amand?
Yeah.
All right, so Exhibit A. Whoops.
Wait a minute.
So Exhibit 8, for example, indicates that there was a student, it's student number 2, at unit 409 and 75 LePage Lane, was a student in the 2nd grade at the, I know it says West P. So is that a school, West P?
Yes, that stands for West Parish Elementary School.
Okay. And student number 1, it says 75 LePage Lane, and also a student in that same grade at West P. It doesn't say what unit number that student was in. Do you know that?
I see it on the page. I don't know what number it is. My understanding that this is the residential unit in this area, is 75 LePage Lane. I would have to check with the business office to get that information.
And how many 2nd grade classes are there at that West P school?
At West Parish, there are three classes per grade.
Okay, so the addition of 2 students to 3 classes, that isn't going to increase the cost to the Gloucester Public Schools by $17,000 for each student, is it?
What I know is that a student coming in, there are a number of students that can come in, which can either cause us to have more students than we should be enrolling. For example, in kindergarten, I know you're using the grade 2 illustration, but in kindergarten, we try to keep the numbers at 18. If for any reason the students add up and more than the number of students that could fit into 18 come in, that could be problematic for us. If I may, what also could potentially be an issue is, again, getting back to special education and the nature of a disability that a child coming in may have, and the need for a paraprofessional or for other services where caseloads are already high.
Well, I moved to strike the answer because it was not responsive.
Motion's allowed.
Right? Isn't it the case that having two students enter the second grade at that school, where there are 3 second grade classes, might very likely not increase the school's budget by over $17,000 for each of those students.
Well, again, I know you don't like my answer, but it depends on the individual circumstances of the child in conjunction with the other numbers of students that are coming in.
Well, is it your testimony that every time a family moves into the city of Gloucester and say they have a school-age child who is going to attend one of the classrooms in one of the 12 grades, or kindergarten or preschool, that that means that the budget for the city of Gloucester goes up by over $17,000?
I think my testimony is that that we deal with averages, that every child is unique, that certain children may come in and there is not as the direct impact that you're suggesting, and in other instances, there is impact based upon the needs. If it's an English language learner, if it's a special education student, the reason we have to deal with averages is because each child is unique and each child is different.
Well, I think I'm asking a kind of a simple question, and I'm not.
Mr. Cohen, are you through with this this
All right,
exhibit?
I'll move on from there, Your Honor.
Ms. St. Amand, why don't you take that exhibit down?
Now, you didn't attend the public hearing on August 27th, 2019, where the City Council heard the petition by Bevilacqua Company, Inc. For special permits. You didn't do that, correct?
I have no recollection of it now.
Okay, and you didn't put any input into the process undertaken by the City Council to decide whether or not to grant the plaintiff special permits, did you?
No.
So, and you're estimating that so there are 12 grades in the Gloucester Public Schools, correct?
13 if you count kindergarten.
Okay, and then looks like do you include this pre-kindergarten also?
In addition, yes.
Okay, and so we're talking about potentially 6 students entering into any of those, I guess I'd say 14 different grades, correct?
Yes.
And each year, there's a certain number of students who leave the system, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you try to estimate, how many children are going to enter and how many children are going to leave, correct?
Correct.
And some years, the amount of students, the total amount of students decreases, isn't that correct?
Yes.
All right, I have no further questions.
I have no redirect, Your Honor.
I've got a couple of questions for you, Doctor. In forming your opinion, did you look at as to the number of students that would likely occupy this proposed 8-unit project? Did you look at any other multifamily dwellings to get a read on the number of students in multifamilies other than the LePage Lane building?
No.
Well, there are lots of multifamily dwellings around the city of Gloucester, right?
Yes.
How did you pick that one?
It was I think because it was one of the larger ones.
Excuse me, I can't hear you. What?
Because it was one of the larger units.
Well, it's more than 3 times larger than the subject property that we're talking about. Did you look at any other similarly sized units, like other 8-unit projects?
I looked at the LePage.
You didn't look at the 5-unit building that's next door to this property, did you?
No.
In planning for your budget for upcoming years and how many students you're going to have, do you look at building permits that have been issued for new multifamily housing as part of your planning?
Well, what we'll usually do is look at, we've hired.
That's a yes or a no. That's a yes or a no, doctor. Do you?
I have, yes.
There's currently a large multifamily dwelling under construction on Main Street in downtown Gloucester. Looks to me to be about 15 or 20 units. Did you take that into account in your planning the last year or so?
No, not at this time. It hasn't. It's under construction.
Okay. All right, that's all. Thank you. Mr. Mullen, do you wish to add anything following my questions?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Doctor, you're excused. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Basu, Mr. Mullen?
Not for the city, Your Honor.
So the city rests?
City rests.
Okay, and we've agreed that we're gonna have closings at 2 p.m. today. So we'll see you back here at 2 p.m., okay? I'm gonna ask my staff to stay on. We'll chat for a minute, and we'll see the rest of you back at 2 p.m. Thanks.
Okay, Your Honor. Thank you.